Lamine Yamal is going to be a problem. At just 17 years of age, he's already ruined football. From insane records to performances way beyond his age, taking on fullbacks twice his size, Lamine Yamal has been constantly showing the world that age doesn't matter when it comes to the game. But most of the stuff he's done, unknowingly to him and the rest of the world, is going to be a problem because it's destroying football. When he first burst onto the scene, there were very few people who could have predicted what was to come. He made his debut for Barcelona at 15 years old. 15? Dude, when I was that age, the only career I had was on EAFC. Lamine Yamal at that moment immediately became the youngest player to play for Barcelona, and the youngest player to debut in La Liga. But the crazy thing is, the debut wasn't just for show. The kid could play. In that short cameo versus Real Betis, he looked electric. Fast forward to the 2023-24 season. Actually, hold on to that. At the Under-17 Euros of 2023 for Spain, he balled out too. That goal against France, the pick of the bunch, and a sign of things to come. Lamine Yamal was already making serious waves at Barcelona, and the club had already started seeing him as the future. See, in that summer, he'd already caused his first major problem at the club. The club let go of 2 first-team regulars because they believed in him. Ousmane Dembele was expected to stay at Barcelona, and he was the club's chief operator down the left wing, the position you would expect Lamine Yamal to occupy. But in the summer, Dembele and his agent wanted more from Barcelona, an increased contract, and when it didn't come, Dembele decided to accept a proposal from PSG, and the club let him leave. Now, being the type of player he is, and how he was kind of important to the then manager, Xavi's plans, it wouldn't have been a surprise if Barcelona had rejected the move by either forcing Dembele to stay or rejecting PSG's offer. But instead they allowed Dembele to leave, and that was because Xavi figured he found the perfect replacement: Lamine Yamal. Still only 16, Xavi put a lot of faith in him. That season, he handed him his official first-team debut after a couple of pre-season games. And versus Cadiz, Lamine made history. He became the youngest player to start a La Liga game since Fabrice Olinga for Malaga in 2012. For context, Lamine Yamal was only 16 years and 38 days old when he broke the record. It meant that even 2 months back, he was still only 15. For Xavi to put that much faith in him said a lot, and he was risking a lot too, including one of the club's rising stars. After an injury-prone last 2 seasons, Ansu Fati had suddenly become the forgotten hero at Barcelona. He was like the forgotten version of Lamine, only predominantly right-footed. I legit thought Xavi would keep Ansu Fati that season, but instead, he loaned him out to build his confidence and restore his match fitness, among other things. But also because he had enough options on the wing he could trust, and Lamine was one of them. Trusting a 16-year-old that much could have easily swung both ways, but luckily for Xavi it went the right one. Lamine Yamal soon started adding end product to his game. It didn't even take as long as they'd expected. Only a few days and he'd made his debut in the second game of the season, and Lamine Yamal broke yet another record. This assist to Gavi meant Lamine had now become the youngest player to provide an assist in La Liga. It was a tipsy-turvy game. Barcelona won 4-3, but in that moment, Lamine Yamal's piece of history was almost as important as the scoreline, because it was at that moment the fans and the world alike knew we were witnessing something special. This kid was going to be a star, and pretty soon he took his record-breaking performances from Spain to the rest of Europe, to the Champions League now, and yep, he was after the records again. After making his debut here in the Champions League for Barcelona, Lamine Yamal added yet another record to his collection. Barcelona's number 27 became the youngest player to debut for Barcelona in the Champions League, and honestly, this one means a lot, especially considering that Barcelona has had a collection of young talent as the coin for years. Players like Ansu Fati, Pedro, Bojan Krikic, and even Lionel Messi all made debuts for the club at young ages, and Lamine Yamal was out here doing it at an even younger age, and in the Champions League as well. Lamine Yamal's young record in the Champions League wasn't done though. That was only matchday 1 numbers. In matchday 2, you've probably guessed it by now, he made history yet again. Away at FC Porto in the Estadio do Dragão, Lamine Yamal copped another Champions League record. 16 years and 87 days, he'd now become the youngest player to start a game in the Champions League. It was even more than that. Lamine Yamal beat a record set by Celestine Babayaro in 1994 that had stood for over 19 years. Whoa! Europe was taking note, and it's important to understand that Lamine Yamal wasn't just making these appearances for the sake of it. This was a kid who was equally balling as well. The way he took on opponents twice his age, went past them easily, dropped the shoulder and guided with the ball. I mean, there was still a lot to learn and much more he could improve on, but even with what he'd done, it was already impressing. I'd bet opposition coaches were asking to double check his passport, because with his skills, no one could believe he was 17 years old. With all the records he was breaking and the way he was breaking them, it was only a matter of time before Lamine hit the one that would have slammed hard, and in a couple of days after this Champions League feat, he did. Away at Granada, history once again. Lamine Yamal had just become the youngest goalscorer in La Liga history, beating Fabrice Olinga's record once again. I'd bet Fabrice Olinga must have been wondering who this guy was, because he was coming for even more of his records. That goal against Granada meant a lot, and looking back at it now, it sealed his fate and actually ruined football. Lamine Yamal could no longer be seen as an ordinary talent for Barcelona any longer. He now had a goal in La Liga for the Blaugrana, an assist, and had debuted in the Champions League, still only 16. He was now added as an asset to the club and was even featuring in the big games too. Jude Bellingham stole the headlines, but Yamal also made history for Barcelona that afternoon. Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to appear in an El Clasico fixture. Imagine that, playing in arguably the biggest game in the world at just 16. Incredible. Soon after this Clasico success, it was back to the Champions League and he once again shined with the lights fully on. Away at Antwerp, his assist to Ferran Torres meant he'd now become the youngest player to provide an assist in the Champions League. Honestly, it just left like every time he stepped onto the pitch at that point, he was breaking some kind of record. He debuted in the Spanish Super Cup for Barcelona, and it wasn't just the appearance record he took that day. He bagged a goal as well. This goal now meant he'd become the youngest player to bag a goal in the Spanish Super Cup. And when he made his debut in the competition, he broke Ansu Fati's record of being the youngest player at the time for Barcelona in the competition. He wasn't slowing down. As the season progressed, the records continued to follow Lamine. In the 3-3 draw versus Granada in the league, he became the youngest player to score twice. Lamine Yamal was breaking all these records for Barcelona, and it didn't take time for him to start a temporary bidding war between two countries trying to get him to play for them. Actually, make that 3. See, Lamine Yamal was born in Spain, and because of that, it meant he qualified to play for the Spanish national team from birth, and he was following a normal progression path like this too. He'd already represented Spain at under 17 level, and now the senior team under Luis Enrique was ready for him to make the step up. But it wasn't going to be that straightforward for Lamine because he had other options as well. I'll tell you in a bit, but first, see that subscribe button to Mr. Football down below. Click it so you never miss any of the channel's action. Apart from Spain, Lamine Yamal could have played for 2 other countries if he wanted to. His dad, Munir Nasraoui, is from Morocco, and his mum, Sheila Ebana, is from Equatorial Guinea. His parents, Lamine Yamal, had links to both countries. While Equatorial Guinea seemed far out of the picture, Morocco was an actual possibility, and they did reach out to him. But in the end, Lamine chose to play for Spain. And history was in the making with this decision. Luis Enrique called him up for the Nations League matches in the international break of September 2023. 2 things happened here. Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to play for Spain at 16 years and 57 days, breaking Gavi's record in the process, but also his goal against the same opponents made him the youngest player to score for Spain. I mean, was there much left? The answer was no. Lamine Yamal, in the space of 5 months, was wiping records it had taken years to build. He was again still only 16 and playing in the Champions League, mixing it up in La Liga, and now playing for the Spanish national team. At the end of his first season with Barcelona, Lamine Yamal got called up to the Spanish national team for the Euros. And here he proved a point. If there was still any doubt questioning if he was good enough, or if he could perform at the highest level, he answered then spectacularly. In the opening game versus Croatia at 16 years and 339 days, Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to start a game at the Euros. But more importantly, the competition wasn't fazing him. He provided the assist to Gavi in the opening game and also became the youngest player to record a goal contribution in the tournament as well. He and Spain made it to the knockout stages, and in the semi-final versus France, Lamine showed he could equally be ruthless as well. Just before the game, France's Adrien Rabiot had come out and said this: "We saw that he was a player who knew how to handle pressure very well, but it will be up to us to put pressure on him. not to let him feel comfortable, and to show him that to play in a Euro final, he will have to do much more than what he has done so far. Hear that? Rabiot was openly telling Lamine that if he wanted to ball, he'd need to do much more. Challenge issued. It's crazy looking back on it now because up to that point, the only thing Lamine Yamal hadn't done at the Euros was score, and he didn't waste any time in silencing Rabiot or the rest of his critics. Hope that was enough, Adrian. What a goal! He legit pulled this off at 16. And it helped Spain advance to the final in a 2-1 win. The final itself was once again another piece of history for Lamine Yamal. He now became the youngest player to play in a Euros final. And with that, well, it was his chance to write his name into European legend. 16 years old, playing in the final of the Euros. When I was 16, I was watching the final of the Euros. Lamine Yamal was doing incredible at such a young age, and now he was one game away from completing an incredible competition with Spain. The final against England wasn't going to be an easy task. But as had been the theme all competition long, it didn't faze Spain or their youngsters. They carried out their jobs, and on Lamine Yamal's part, he was a key part of Spain's final success. He assisted the opener to his teammate and buddy Nico Williams and helped Spain win 2-1 and not only win the match but the competition. Spain added another star to the crest and they became champions of Europe again. On his part, Lamine Yamal's record-breaking season didn't go unnoticed. He was awarded the Best Young Player of the Competition award and had also become the youngest player to win an international trophy. In this category, he'd gone after a GOAT, a future GOAT too, and taken both down. Pele was 17 when he won the World Cup with Brazil. Kylian Mbappe was 19 when he won the World Cup. And Lamine Yamal was 16 when he won the Euros. 16. In case you haven't realized it by now, I'll point it out to you. Lamine Yamal has ruined football. Truth is, there's nothing left. Think about it. I've probably said the word youngster more times in this video than I ever have, and that's because each time it was about an achievement or landmark Lamine Yamal had reached. He's making it seem normal, but it isn't. It's far from that. The current greats in the game, from the outgoing ones like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, to the upcoming ones like Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland, none of these guys were as good at 16. Lamine Yamal is already competing with superstars still as a teenager. With these records, what he's done for football is set a record that's impossible to beat. I mean, it's so crazy to think that we might never see a 16-year-old who is this good again. A 16-year-old debuting for a national team like Spain, with the history of talent they produced over the years, is staggering. But that's what Lamine has done, made history. A 16-year-old winning the Euros might never happen again. Or a 16-year-old playing in El Clasico. It sounds daunting thinking about it. Unless you're a Barcelona fan, here comes the scary part. Lamine Yamal is only getting better. He's already into double-digit goal contributions this season. In the Champions League, he's been in some form. Just ask Bayern Munich. He was a constant threat all through. The way he went past that defense, it was scary. And what's scary is that he was doing it against players like Alphonso Davies. He owned Sergei Gnabry that evening with so many dribbles it was hard to keep count. But his biggest performance of the season so far came in his and Barcelona's biggest game of the season, away to Real Madrid, who had gone 49 games without losing a game in La Liga and were on the verge of making history. What's more, this one was being played at the Bernabeu, Real Madrid turf. Barcelona had every reason to come into this one as underdogs, but on that big stage, Lamine Yamal did this. I don't know which one is more impressive, the goal or the fact that he scored this with his right foot, his supposed weaker side. It's still not normal to watch the stuff he does, the way he glides past opponents, close control, the dribbling, the cold moments. Lamine Yamal is a footballing prodigy that football might just never see again. He's been so good that he's even been recognized by both GOATs. Lionel Messi acknowledges, and even Cristiano Ronaldo too, both recognize that Lamine Yamal is no ordinary talent. He's a rare breed that's out of this world. In the process of breaking all these records, Lamine Yamal has now given fans a false perception of the game by accident. Now, for a youngster to be recognized as a talent, they'd have to match the stuff Lamine has done. And that's incredibly hard. Performing like he is week in and week out at his age, it takes some doing, and he's pulling it off. After El Clasico, Lamine Yamal was on hand to receive an award that cements his status as the face of the next generation. The Copa Trophy recognizes the best young player in the world, and Lamine Yamal was the winner. To be fair, I'm pretty sure all the nominees and everyone else who saw this one could easily figure out who it was going to be. Lamine Yamal was a cut above the rest. In all of this, it's a kid who is down to earth. All of that game and success could easily get into his head, but instead, he's just a kid who likes to dance, play football, and hang out with his buddies. That's Lamine Yamal. No pressure. This season, Lamine Yamal has been on a year, and apart from his obvious talent, it's all thanks to the new man in charge at the club who's taking the team to another level. Click the next video to find out how Hansi Flick has transformed Barcelona.